The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
I've gotten better at not just coaching, but teaching. I aspire to teach the game, not just coach the game. And I think our guys are responding to that. And they love having the input and the ownership in what they're doing.
Casey Korn took the helm of the Lawrence University men's basketball program in September of 2021. Korn came to Lawrence after spending 3 years as the top assistant at University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. In Casey's first season at UW-Oshkosh in 2018-2019, he helped guide the Titans to a 29-3 record and the program's first NCAA Division III title. During his 3 seasons, UW-Oshkosh made 2 appearances in the NCAA Division III Tournament and compiled a 54-14 record. Korn is a graduate of Cornell College, where he played 2 seasons of basketball for the Rams before serving as a student assistant coach for his final 2 seasons. Korn started his coaching journey at Calamus Wheatland High School in Wheatland, Iowa, where he served as the head varsity boys basketball coach from 2009 to 2012. Casey then served as varsity boys basketball coach at Clair High School in St. Clair, Missouri from 2012 to 2015. Korn also coached varsity boys basketball at Rockwood Summit High School in Fenton, Missouri from 2015 to 2018 before reuniting with college teammate and UW-Oshkosh head coach Matt Lewis. Hey Hoopheads, I wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market. Sign up now for their Virtual Camp 2.0 featuring 10 days of workouts with pro trainers from the Dr. Dish family. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Visit drdishbasketball.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Coach Harri Mannonen from Pelikarhut, Kotka, Finland. I'm the author of ebook Complex Basketball Coaching, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. If you're looking to improve your coaching, please consider joining the Hoopheads Mentorship Program. We believe that having a mentor is the best way to maximize your potential and become a transformational coach. By matching you up with one of our experienced mentors, you'll develop a one-on-one relationship that will help your coaching, your team, your program, and your mindset. The Hoopheads Mentorship Program delivers mentoring services to basketball coaches at all levels through our team of experienced head coaches. Find out more at hoopheadspod.com or shoot me an email directly, mike@hoopheadspod.com. Follow us on social media at hoopheadspod on Twitter and Instagram, and be sure to check out the Hoopheads Podcast Network for more great basketball content. Are you tired of overpaying for your video and analytics platform? Well, it's time to check out QuickCut.com, a platform built by coaches for coaches. QuickCut is undeniably more affordable. It's all cloud-based and comes packed with features to help high schools and youth programs store, share, and analyze game film. Make the switch, get double the storage, and save your program up to 50% on the fastest growing video editing system in the country. For more information or to request a free trial, visit quickcut.com/basketball. That's QWIKCUT.com. Listen and learn from Casey Korn, head men's basketball coach at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight. And we are pleased to welcome back to the Hoop Heads Podcast for the third time, which, Casey, I have to say, that puts you in a pretty exclusive club. I meant, Jason, to tell you to do
You were going to tell me to do research?
I was going to tell you to do a little research.
Gosh.
So now you're going to have to do a little research right now to see how many people we've had on 3 times, because Casey is joining an exclusive group. But for our audience who maybe don't know who Casey is yet, Casey Korn is the head men's basketball coach at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. Casey, welcome back to the Hoop Heads Pod. Excited to have you on. Glad you're here, and we're going to dive into your latest journey in your coaching experience, which is becoming a head coach at the collegiate level for the first time. But first of all, welcome.
Well, I appreciate it. I probably, on those first 2, just wouldn't quit talking. So you had to cut me off. You said, hey, we'll bring you back later. And I just keep popping back up on here. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. Listen to your podcast all the time. Actually, I haven't gone back and listened to any of mine, so hopefully those turn out all right. And
well, this is going to be the best one yet. This is the best one yet.
That's the plan, right? A different title this go around.
That's right.
Which is exciting. But no, it's I appreciate you having me on.
So what we thought we would do for people maybe who haven't listened to those first 2 episodes is just go back and give us a quick synopsis of kind of how you've gotten here in your coaching journey. And then we're going to dive into the specifics of how you went from an assistant coach at UW-Oshkosh, where you won a national championship, to a rebuilding program at Lawrence. And we'll just talk about that whole process. And I think coaches are going to get a lot of value out of it. But first, kind of give people an idea of how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started my coaching career as a high school coach right out of college. Got a varsity high school job. We had some success, continued to move, I guess, a little larger schools. I started in Iowa, ended up back in St. Louis, where I was born and raised, and to a really good 2 high schools down there. I was very happy with my final kind of high school stop. It was one of those destination type of jobs, and until Matt Lewis, who is the current head coach at Oshkosh and one of my best friends, we met each other at Cornell College at 18 years old. He picked up the phone and he called me and said, hey, I just transitioned to the head coach, and I would like a guy that I can trust and wants to do this with me. And so about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I packed up the car. I moved my wife up to Wisconsin, where I visited, I think, one time in my entire life, and we hopped on board before we ever actually, saw the state, saw the school, and drove up, and had 3 really successful years. Doing it with a wonderful program. I learned a ton, but the coolest part about it was doing it with maybe your best friend, going through those ups and downs together, and then all of a sudden, very, very late. This year in September, a head job opened up, and a place that's very, very close to where we are location wise, and actually there's a lot of ties between me and this university at Lawrence University, and it opened up late, and I hopped on board, and we're learning on the fly, I guess you could say, but been a head coach now for a couple months, and enjoying it every step of the way.
Okay, so let's start with one. As you mentioned, when you're at Oshkosh, you're working with a guy who's been your friend for a long time, which obviously is not something that everybody always gets to do. Now, maybe you become friends with people on your staff, but it's not often you get to work with somebody who's been your longtime friend. So obviously that's not a situation that you're necessarily actively looking to get out of. Plus, Oshkosh has been a perennial Division III power. You know that year in and year out, Matt's got the program where you're probably going to win. And then this opportunity comes up. And as you said, coming up in September, it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to get out on the recruiting trails and put together your team. And you're kind of coming in and just, hey, I got this group of guys and we got to figure it out. So first of all, how does that opportunity come across your desk? How do you find out about it? And then what about it really piques your interest, because you're obviously already in a good situation?
The best time to get a job is when you're not looking, I think. There's some type of a phrase like that. But I was content. I'm so happy for Matt and his wife Galen. They adopted twins kind of at the end of last season, and so my responsibility at Oshkosh had gone up. Not that Matt would ever be a hands off type of coach. He'd never just said, "Hey, go do it." But I was the one, pretty much going and seeing all the recruits. He just couldn't get out of the house. With newborns in the house, it's almost next to impossible. And so I'm giving them recaps, and so I was content. I was happy. I love the guys on the Oshkosh team. I thought we had a great recruiting class. We had a great team coming back. So there wasn't really an act of, hey, I got to get out of here. So all of a sudden, September rolls around. Actually, to take you back, the old coach at Lawrence, Zach Filzen, took the job at Bethel. That opened up late, and so whenever he got the job over there, he kind of gave me a heads up. Me and Zach have known each other. I actually currently live in Appleton. I lived in Appleton, which is where Lawrence University is located. While I was working in Oshkosh, I actually lived a mile and a half away from campus while I was at Oshkosh. So there wasn't any moving for me to do, but me and Zach got along real well. We actually went, on those out of town recruiting trips. Me and him shared expenses. I would rent the car and he would get the hotel, and vice versa. So, I'm pretty familiar with the program. And when it opened up, he said, "Hey, there's going to be an opportunity if you want it. I think they want to move fast." The first phone call I made was to Matt, and he said, "Hey, that's Matt's wife actually works at Lawrence University, and so she's like, it's a great place. I'll do everything I can to help you get the job." And 48 hours later, I'm named the head coach at Lawrence University.
What's that interview like?
It was quick. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that Zach called me at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning and said, "Hey, I'm taking the Bethel job." I call Matt. I put in a quick phone call saying, "Hey, I know this thing is opening up. I'd be very interested in talking about it." And then me and my wife, like, my head's racing, and so I don't know what to do. And so me and my wife go to the state park near us, and we start walking through the hills. And the next thing you know, I come back into service, and I got 3 text messages, one from a former alum at Lawrence and a current college coach, and another one from Zach, and finally from the athletic director, who says, "Hey, if you're interested in this, let's get together sooner rather than later." I give her a call on my drive home from the state park, and she says, "You have time to interview?" I said, "Yeah, let me, I'll gather some stuff together." She's no, like right now. I said, "Yeah, let's go." And then she
saved you a lot of prep time.
Oh my gosh. The funny thing was, she goes, "Wait a minute, you live close to here, right?" I was like, "Yes, I'm 5 minutes away." She goes, "All right, I'll see you in 10 minutes. And she's like, "Don't change. You don't have to dress up. Just come over here. Let's have this conversation." I was like, "All right." So I did change because I was wearing all my Oshkosh gear. When you're a coach, that's all the only
right,
thing you
exactly.
have.
That's all you have. That's your wardrobe.
It's my entire closet changed real quick. But so I threw on a neutral colored T-shirt and hopped in the car, and I drove over there, and we just started talking. It was kind of a casual conversation. I'm sure, and Kim's been wonderful, but I've never been an athletic director. But as a head coach, you have an idea if all of a sudden your assistant coach is going to move on, which you're happy they're going to. You have a list, of people that you might call in case of, of that scenario. And it sounds like, Kim had that list. She obviously knew Zach had an opportunity to get that job, and she'd been doing some research behind the scenes. But part of it's right. It's right place, right time, where I live in town. I don't have to move. My wife doesn't have to move, and I can start in 3 days whenever the paperwork's signed. I don't have to worry about all this other things that are going on. And obviously, I come from a school. I graduated from Cornell, which is a school in the league, and it's a similar type of school, a liberal arts education. And I'm familiar with the area, as I was just in Oshkosh, and with some success. So I feel like it all worked out well. At least it worked out well for me. I'm very happy about this opportunity. But it was a whirlwind for 48 hours and maybe a little bit longer than that. While I get hired, and the next thing you know, I have a recruit coming on campus 48 hours after I sign the paper. So it was wild, but it's better than sitting around thinking about it for 3 weeks.
Well, we just had Pete Moran on from John Carroll here in Cleveland, and he succeeded his father. He's been the head coach at John Carroll for 5 years, and he succeeded his dad, who had been there for 25 years. And he said that he had never wanted really to do anything else besides first play basketball at John Carroll and then eventually to be the head coach there. And when he realized that his father was going to step down, he didn't want people to think that he was getting the job just because that he was the son of his father. And so he spent 9 months putting together a coaching portfolio to prepare for his interview at a place that he had already been an assistant coach for 5 years and where he had already played. So his experience, I would say, was slightly different from your experience of throwing on the T-shirt after you get a phone call and 2 days later you got the job. So it just goes to show you it can happen lots of different ways.
And to be fair, I mean, it's not like this hasn't been thought about. Having success at Oshkosh and Matt being the leader that he is, he's told me to get prepared and has helped me through and all these type of interview questions. But until you do it, until you go through the process, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's what I've been for the last couple of years. I've wanted to go through the process. I've wanted to sit down and interview and, figure out what answers are sufficient and what answers I need to work on and where are my holes. And so all that stuff was prepared. I had it ready to go. I have no idea how much it was looked at because I did right whenever, she called me up, I sent everything over because it's, it's there. It's essentially generic. I didn't get to, put the pretty logos on it and things along those lines. But, the nuts and bolts of who I am and what I want to do was all there. But again, it's better than, interviewing and they have 6 other interviews going on and you're waiting 2.5 weeks later for an on-campus and, you're in limbo there. It was, hey, you got this opportunity. It's time to go.
All right. So think back to that first 24 hours after you got the job. What are some things that you're thinking about, obviously specific to Lawrence, but maybe even just as you've thought about becoming a head coach at some point in your career? What do you remember in terms of thoughts going through your head that first day after you get the job?
So me and my wife are just laughing. We're just like, this is wild. Because, she's really happy in her position. And part of being a coach's wife and significant other is just, you got to put up with what we do. And sometimes it's, 16, 18-hour days, and sometimes we're on the road constantly. And, she knew my dream was to be a head coach, and she didn't want to end up in the middle of nowhere where she didn't, having to move again. And just how lucky we got for this opportunity. That was first. And then it hit me that I had to go tell a team that I think can go win a national championship that I've been with, every day, for 3 years and fought through a pandemic with and did all these things with it. I had to go tell them that I was leaving, knowing that they would be happy for me, but that's not an easy thing to do. So, and then having to meet your team, your current team of guys that you've never recruited, you've never really talked to. And then what are you going to do as a coach? Lawrence did not play a single game last year, and they only had, I think, 4 guys back that had any experience at all playing college basketball. So I don't know what the roster makeup looks like, and I can't even go back and watch film. So all those things are running through my mind, and that night was laugh with my wife, and then write down a couple notes on what I want to tell the guys at Oshkosh, and then, search on Huddle for junior year Huddle highlights of my, 2-guard. And so all those things were just kind of a bouncing back and forth. And, we got through it all. But it was, it was a mixed bag of emotions, that's for sure.
What was the conversation like with your guys at Oshkosh? What do you remember about that talk that you had with them?
It was short and sweet. It kind of blindsided them, to be fair, but if you treat people, and this is what I'm glad happened, and it did. Every single person in that room was so happy for me and me getting that opportunity. They were sad, I hope. At least that's what they seemed like, that I was leaving. But they knew what I wanted to do, and they wanted me to achieve my goal, achieve a dream of mine, and I think if you're treating people the right way and you're doing right by people, that's what they want for you. And so, there were some tears shed, mostly, not mostly, 100% from me. A lot of hugs, and then I kind of got out of the room and let them continue and move forward. And we matched up later on. I've gone and I've watched them play. I'll watch them play online, but I try to stay hands off. They know that I'm there. I'm a text message. I'm a phone call away. Heck, I haven't moved, so I could still help them out in any way, shape, or form. And I'm here for them, and I want to be part of their lives as much as they want me to be part of their lives. And so I thought we left on great terms, but it was a lot of deep breaths before I went up there, because I knew how much I cared for those guys and how much I cared for that program, that it was not going to be an easy conversation.
Then to transition to the conversation, when you go from the guys you're leaving who you know intimately and know very well, as you said, you spent 3 years with a lot of those guys, and now you go to the place where you're going to be with guys that you don't even know. So what does that conversation look like? Did you have a team meeting with everybody? Did you start texting and calling individual players? How'd you go about making the connection with the new team? So
they technically, I was hired before the other coach had announced he was leaving. And so how it all worked was they wanted to, the timelines, they wanted it to work out. And so I think it was Monday night, I think on Sunday night, I got, we did the whole interview process, and by Monday morning, I was offered the job, and then Monday evening they had a exit meeting with the previous coach, and he got to tell his team. And after the coach got off the call, the AD said, "Hey, we already have the next person in place. Don't worry. We think we made a great hire, but we can't tell you who it is right now because he has to tell his team tomorrow." And so then on Tuesday, I told the guys at Oshkosh, and then knowing that how hard it was for me just to have that conversation with guys, that I'm going to be walking in really excited, trying to tell these guys what I'm about and who I am and what we're going to try to get done in the 30 days before practice starts. But understanding that the person that recruited them there is no longer going to be their head coach. And so I have to tread lightly on this, right? I have to, tell them who I am and what we're going to be. And, essentially it was just trying to get to know them. And in the next 30 days, we're going to try to build as much of a relationship as you can build in 30 days, and trust can't be built in that short amount of time, but you can start. The building blocks can get there. And so those are the conversations that I had, and told them what we're going to try to be about, and what we're going to try to do. And right there in that meeting, I told them that, guys, if you don't like what I'm selling here, I will be there to help you find another spot. You're in a tough situation. I can do everything in my power to help you find somebody if this isn't what you want to be. But if you want to be part of this is who we are, and there's no wavering of it. This is what we're going to establish from day one. And we had some people that ended up choosing to go a different route, and there's no hard feelings. It's they did not come here under my philosophy. They came up here under a different philosophy, and we move forward and we help them out. Like I said, we do right by people. That's our goal here, is make sure that people are treated properly.
So the second key piece beyond the players is putting together a staff. So how do you do that under short notice, and again at such a time where it's pretty late in the game to be able to figure out who's going to be a part of it? So how did you go about, what was your thinking on how you're going to put together a staff?
Well, again, with the advantage of being so close, I've gotten to know my current assistant, who was the assistant last year. He was a part-time assistant for them last year. And so through the recruiting process, I got to know him a little bit. And whenever this was possibly happening, the head coach called me, the former head coach at Lawrence called me and said, "Hey, this guy's, he's got to be good. You got to give him a chance. If you want him, you do what you're going to do. But he's bought in. He knows you. He knows the pedigree you're coming from. he's going to be a good asset for you. He knows the school, understands the nuances of recruiting here. Give him a look. And so I picked up the phone and I started talking with him. And, before we hung up the phone, I said, if you're interested, I'd love to have you. We won't always see eye to eye. There'll be times where, you're going to be learning, and it's my job to make sure that you are successful. But from day one, Kevin has jumped right on board, and he's learning what I'm trying to do and who we're trying to become. The biggest difference, just it's coaching philosophies is just some of the recruiting side of things. But he had a relationship with some guys that were already interested in Lawrence to begin with. I brought the list of guys that I have seen that I felt would be good Lawrence fits, and we dove in right away for that. And then we went and got a local high school assistant coach who's been doing it at a high level for a long time. I actually coached a couple of his former players whenever I was at Oshkosh. Ben Boots and Levi Borchard, both All-American type of kids, came under his, he was part of that program, and, a winning pedigree and a guy that wanted to try it at the next level. And he jumped in as well. He's still teaching in the area and wanted to mix it up a little bit, and he's been an unbelievable asset for us. Just another guy that's willing to give everything he's got and tell me things that I don't want to hear sometimes, and give me a difference of opinion. But he's been doing it for such a long time at a high level. It's just always done the right way with Jeff, and I couldn't ask for on such short notice to get two better guys to help me kind of get this thing going.
So you've got players, you've got your coaching staff. Who are some of the other key people in the Lawrence community that you felt you needed to talk to, or that you did talk to get a feel for where the program has been, where it is now, and maybe where you want it to go? Were there some other key people, AD, just people on the faculty, people in the community? Who'd you reach out to kind of find out more about what they saw for the program and maybe help you to get some insight on what you needed to do?
Well, the best thing that happened is Pat Yuckham, who's the head coach at WashU, was the former coach at Oshkosh before he left, and Matt took over and hired me. He's a Lawrence alum. He played at Lawrence. Then he coached at Lawrence. That's where he started his coaching career as an assistant coach. And he knows he was there when Lawrence was a powerhouse in the 2000s to 2010. They were number one in the nation at one period of time. They'd made NCAA tournaments. They're, competing. They got Player of the Year and things like that. And so he was a resource for sure. Kind of going through this transition process, because he knows both Oshkosh and Lawrence, and he gave me some great advice. On some different people to reach out to. Our director of development for athletics is a basketball alum. And so I picked up the phone and I called him, and he's like, hey, here's some guys that care about the program, pick up the phone and call these guys. And they've been, phenomenal. Just telling me their stories and why Lawrence is important to them, and, what made their experience so unique and so fulfilling. So those guys sharing their stories with me has helped me kind of build my recruiting philosophy, and then going across. I say it across the river. Our facility is just right across the river, so that's how I refer to it. But to the academic side, I guess you can say, and starting to have lunch with just different professors, and I've met with. In that first week, I think I had lunch 4 or 5 times with some different professors, and just hearing what they're doing, and sorry about that.
It's all right.
What they're doing and what Lawrence is all about, and what we need to do, moving forward to build a relationship between the men's basketball program and just how academics is, how important it is to a place like Lawrence, and what kind of students has succeeded here in the past, and just picking their brains and asking their advice, and what majors do we have here, and what's a good career path whenever a kid says he wants to go to law school or wants to be a doctor or wants to run their own business. Like all these things that I just don't know yet, they're just feeding me information. I took so many notes in that first week. But everybody's so willing to help. And that's what, I think made it as special as anything else is, people there was no, hesitancy. They just said, yeah, here's what I know. Take everything I know and use it to your advantage. And that was just, the openness of everybody was outstanding.
After having had those conversations, as you started to look ahead to the season and putting the program together, what did you foresee or think was going to be the biggest challenge to have a successful season? And again, you can define success however you want to define it. And then did that challenge prove to be the one that actually was the biggest challenge? So I guess the question is, what did you think you were getting into? And then did that prove to be what you actually were getting into? Or was there something else that proved to be a bigger challenge than maybe what you thought originally?
The answer to that is still to be determined, I think. It's as far as success this year, and maybe even just moving forward, I think we have a good plan in place. I think we have, like I said, there's Coach Filzen who's there before me. He started, recruiting some of the similar type of guys, competitive guys that want to win it at a very high level and do things the right way and are great teammates and all those different things that we are continuing to implement and maybe go in a little bit different direction, but the nuts and bolts were there. It was the biggest challenge is going to be the recruiting piece. And I think that's where anybody, outside of it and at this level will probably say the same thing. I was lucky enough to, work at a place like Oshkosh where they had started when Pat and Matt took over that program. They were at the bottom of the WEAC, and I was fortunate enough to jump in after all of those pieces have kind of been, in place where they had that success, and I was able to help sustain that success and see it and continue to grow it. Sustained success is really, really hard to do. But you have to have the right people on the bus to make that go and figuring out what the right people are, who the right people are, and getting them in. It's not just, do they like what you have to offer? It's, will they fit in academically? Do they have the majors? Can they afford it? All these different factors that are different at the private school education compared to the state school education are things that I'm still learning about. I think we have an unbelievable product to sell. We can sit here night basketball podcast, but if you want to start talking academics, I think we are one of the top in the state of Wisconsin. But it's also there's other things that you have to fight when it comes to recruiting and getting the people into your institution. I mean, just in general, less people are going to college anyway. And so all those factors are things that I still think we're trying to figure out. As far as having success this year, it was number one, it was all about the relationships with the guys. I wanted to come in and show them that I cared. It's just who I am as a person, I believe. It's why I got into the business. It's why I almost didn't take the Oshkosh job when Matt offered it to me. I had 154 kids in the classroom that I thought I was doing a good job and making an impact on, and it's something that I truly cherish. And when I told him that I don't know if I'll have the same impact, he said, you won't have as many, but you'll make more of an impact on people. And he was completely right. And so just making sure that those relationships were grown and fostered and I could, show the guys that me just saying it isn't enough. We want to do it. I want to put essentially the money where my mouth is, right? Like I want to show them that I cared and help them get better and help them, find their internship if they need help finding their internship and making sure holding them accountable in the classroom. And so all those different things were what was going to be our first priority. And we figured we had enough talent to go out and compete. I Don't know what the record's going to end up, but we're knock on wood, we have a chance to play postseason basketball this year, and that would be a huge step for where the program's been the last couple of years.
So when you think about recruiting and getting the job in September, I'm assuming that the recruiting that you started doing from day one was pointed towards next season as opposed to this season, correct?
Yeah, we're going after 2022s, right? There's
Correct.
no chance any 2021s, the freshmen this year were coming in, so we are geared towards that 2022 class.
So when you start looking at those players and you think about the type of player that you were able to recruit at Oshkosh, I'm assuming that you want to get to the level where you can recruit that same type of player. So when you think about being able to identify those guys, take us through the process from you've never heard of a guy to it's a guy we want to recruit. How do they get on your radar in the first place? Is that through connections with high school coaches? Is that how are you finding the name of those players initially? And then once you find the name and you go out and look at them, what's the process for narrowing it down to a guy that you really want to recruit and bring in to have be part of your program?
So I'm going to take you the long way around. That's
Sure.
why, so I can get on podcast number 4 is kind of what we're going for here.
That's
So,
good. Perfect.
It was at Oshkosh, we recruited locally. That was kind of our thing, right? We wanted the best players within the 2-hour radius. If you could play high-level Division III basketball in the state of Wisconsin, we wanted you. Now, that didn't mean we wouldn't go to Illinois or Iowa or Missouri or Minnesota, but that was kind of where we narrowed things in. We have currently, in a Wisconsin Division III institution, we currently have 0 Wisconsin kids on our roster at Lawrence. So the dynamics of where we are getting players from is completely different. And you're familiar with the level of Division III basketball, not only in the Midwest, but Wisconsin in general. It's high. I mean, the WIAC is arguably the best Division III league. When I was in it, I would argue it was the best Division III league. You play in that league to win national championships. And I say all of that is because we do need to go get a couple Wisconsin kids, and we got to bring some of the local kids and keep them at home. But it's hard to do whenever you're going up against a really good league that's in your backyard that you're competing with. And so then you have to start branching out and you have to start finding players. What I'm realizing and what I'm really working on is, and the professors have helped me, the former players have helped me, is there's a niche at Lawrence. It's not, I know what a high level basketball player looks like. Somebody that can help you win conference tournaments and even NCAA tournament games because I was with them. And we have to go out and find guys that can compete at that level and that look like that and can compete, that hard, but that fit our little niche at Lawrence that, maybe one a little bit higher academic institution or that prestige, or maybe their parents both went to private liberal arts colleges or, something along those lines where there's that little niche where we start by having just casting the net out there. We're going to look at anybody that can play basketball. And then the first thing we're going to look at is at your GPA. Because if you cannot get in, we are not going to spend the time looking at you. And then it goes to, even maybe more so, where, if you're not going to get this certain level of scholarship, then, depending on where you're at. So that helps us narrow down the list pretty early. But we got we have students from 48 of the 50 states at Lawrence, for being a small school as we are, which is pretty impressive. We have students from multiple different countries, and so our net is out there. We are going to use every little bit of connections. Anybody that wants to email me, I read every single email that comes through, and there's a lot of them about potential players. And the first thing, like I said, the first thing I look at is your GPA, and then the second thing, I'm watching a little bit of a highlight film, and do we need to continue watching, or is this hey, and I respond to almost all of them saying, hey, good luck. You're not going to. Essentially, you're not a fit for us. But we spent a lot of time, casting that net out there and just trying to find and build our list. And then those first conversations are, hey, is this a realistic person for us? Do they like what we're trying to give them as in terms of education, philosophy, basketball, style, location, all these different things financially will be able to fit in what they are going to do. Because as much as we would love to say that's not a factor, Division III basketball, it's 100% a factor. So all those different things are what starts to build our list. And then I haven't done the whole building of the list. It was kind of already kind of narrowed as I got there. But we're narrowing down on 25 players that we really, really like, that we think they could come in and help us. We only have right now 11 healthy bodies, and that's not sicknesses, that's injuries. 13 bodies, 11 of them are healthy, and that for a Division III roster, that's low. So we're trying to get it up to 16, 18 bodies, and so we're looking for some people that can come in and compete right away for some spots.
When you get to the point where you are now ready to start making some basketball decisions about this season.
Yep.
And figuring out, okay, how do we want to play? And you've obviously thought about a lot about this leading into this opportunity, but you got to get to know your personnel. You got to figure out who those kids are. As you said, they didn't play a game the previous season, so you don't have a whole lot to go on. What was the basketball prep like during that month you had between the day you get hired and the day practice starts? How did you kind of put together what you wanted to do from a basketball philosophy, offensive and defensive system standpoint?
I'm going to share it, but it was probably too little of work. We spent our time looking through the recruiting list, maybe more so than anything else. Is we are going to figure out recruiting wise. And then as a staff, we sat down and, you wouldn't necessarily believe it by looking at our scores. We've given up 100 a couple times, but we do preach defense. We are a defensive minded outfit, and offensively, we're gonna let you play to your strengths. We're running motion offense, and the problem is I didn't know what our strengths were. And so I knew what I wanted to do. I want our guys to take control of this program. I want them to, not look over at me and make sure I'm calling a set every single time down the floor. I want them to see how the defense is guarding you, and then they're going to tell you what to do offensively. And so that's definitely a teaching point. But player A, who doesn't shoot it really well, who's a good athlete and is good at attacking downhill, him reading the screen might be different than player B, who can, in rhythm, catch it, heel toe, knock down threes. And so, the one size fits all, how you read screens or how you come off these cuts are, at least in my world and the way we're teaching things, aren't always, it's not cookie cutter. And so I talked to the coaches about it, and I said, we are going to be way better January 1st than we are November 1st. But let's figure out what we're going to do defensively. And we had a lot of defensive talks. And offensively, it's going to take a couple weeks so we can figure out what our skill set is. Yeah, we're going to teach these screens and these angles and these reads. But now whenever I pull, Brad Sindell into the office, who's has a chance, if we're any good, he has a chance to be the player of the league in our league. He's a heck of a first point guard to have. Walking into it, but this is maybe a really good shot for you, or this may be a really good action for you. And then as I pull in somebody else, hey, this is more along the lines, but this player likes, and so it's just so many unknowns that first month that we we didn't have a lot of conversations about it. I said, I want to see what we have, and we will play a little bit of catch up. And maybe it hurt us early in the year, but our guys the offense hasn't been our problem. We've been over 1 point per possession in most of our games. Guys are figuring out how to cut and play with one another and what each person likes to do, and the freedom of it, I think, is been beneficial to us. And I think we're only going to get better on the offensive side of the ball. It's, when we're good, when we're competing with the top level teams, it's because we're defending at a much higher rate some nights than we are other nights. And the thing about our team is we have to defend so perfectly night in and night out. We don't have the 6'9" guy that if you get beat off the bounce, they're going to contest that thing at the rim. So all 5 guys have to play in unison, and they have to stick to the plan. And that's what we're learning. We're getting better at it. The guys understand it. They're believing in it. But that's where all of our focus has been.
When you put together a practice plan, what does the process look like for you? And has that process changed since the beginning of the season? Now, I'm sure what you've put into the practice plan has probably changed as you've adjusted and seen what your personnel, but just has your process of maybe what you thought you were going to do as a head coach, has that changed at all over the course of so far in this season in terms of your practice planning?
Absolutely. The 2 things that I learned very early, and I think I knew this, but it took me a little while, is number one, I'm not Matt Lewis, and this is not Oshkosh, right? There's a lot of similarities of what we're trying to do, right? You replicate things that, 1, 2 that are good, and I knew good while being out there at Oshkosh. They very, very successful program, and so we're trying to take some of that stuff and use it, but there's definitely differences. In I had to realize that I'm me. I'm going to do things my way and do the drills that we need to do, and without giving up some of that integrity that what we're trying to get done. I still had to be myself. And 2, I had to learn how to delegate a little bit more. I knew what I did as an assistant coach, which you might ask Matt this question and may get a different answer, but I feel that I was on top of a lot of things in that role, but I had also been a head coach for 10 years prior to being an assistant coach. And so coming in and having a guy that is relatively new at it, at first I was doing a little bit more of both roles, and instead of letting him grow, and it took me a little while. It took me through 5 or 6 games before I gave up. Even at the games, I gave up some of that responsibility as well, so I could focus on the game and start making some adjustments. The thing about motion offense is you have to be in tune to how the defense is playing you, so you can help your guys make those adjustments. And whenever I was matching everybody up and subbing and doing all these different things, it was hard for me to feel that out. So I've given up some of that responsibility, and it's helped, I think, everybody involved. Just like I talked about letting our players grow, I need to let our coaches grow as well. And so maybe that's been the biggest difference, taking this back to the practice side of things, is making sure I am who I am and we are who we are, and not try to be anybody else. And then giving my assistant coaches, letting them and sometimes making them do a little bit more of the coaching while I'm sitting back and evaluating some of those times. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I'm getting better at it.
Do you, when you think about that delegation piece, are you giving them, hey, you've got this 15-minute segment where we're working on ball screen defense? Are you of the mindset that at some point you may have turn over a specific area to one assistant coach? Just how do you go about making the decision about what you delegate? First of all, you have to obviously decide to delegate, which, as you already described, yes, can be difficult. But then once you decide, hey, I'm going to, then how do you decide what it is that you want to delegate to your assistants, again, to help them grow, but to help your program be better?
You have to be comfortable to teach. The last thing you want to do is teach something in front of a head coach that's wrong. And I've been there, right? I've sat there and I've looked over my shoulder a couple times, thinking I was right, pretty sure I was right, but you're still like, oh crap, I better not be screwing this up. And so it's my job to make sure, as we're delegating, that the coaches are going to put their best foot forward in front of the team, because when they are coaching, then the last thing we want them to do is them teach them something wrong, me come in over the top and say, nope, that's not how we're going to do it. Has it happened? Absolutely. Will it happen again? Probably. But we don't want that to happen all the time. You know, that's happened with like a scouting report thing where, you know, we were going through how we're going to guard something, and I changed my mind at the last second, and nope, this is how we're going to go about and do it. And anyway, so we have to find a way to make sure that they're successful. And right now, you know, each coach has their own strength. And we're giving them the opportunities to continue to teach within that strength. And then I'm forcing them to take over different, you know, drills. It started with drills, things that, you know, some different teaching points, and they'll say something to me, and it's like, all right, stop it and tell the group. And so we're trying to build confidence that way, you know, asking coaches, you know, stop it, and I'll ask them what they see, you know, in front of the whole group, just to get people comfortable, you know, again, in talking in front of the team. Not that they're not comfortable doing it, but it's you know, getting the guys to hear them and understand that we're all in this together. So it's making sure that they're going to be successful right away. I think that we have one coach that definitely gravitates towards the defensive side of the ball, and another coach that gravitates towards the offensive side of the ball. That's who they are. And just like I said, I need to be who I am. I want them to be who they are. So they're kind of gravitating towards, you know, each of that side, you know, those sides of the basketball. And, you know, when we're going 5-on-5, you know, one's watching offense, one's watching defense most of the time on both sides. And so that's worked out really well. But I also need them to know both sides of the basketball. You know, in these days, you never really know when you're going to be there and when you're not going to be there, and so that's worked out well the last couple of days for us.
So as you think about helping them to adjust to their role and figure out what they're going to do to contribute and be a part of what you're trying to build, when you think about yourself as a head coach versus your previous position as an assistant coach, what are some things that maybe you didn't realize were going to be a part of, and maybe you realized they were going to be a part of it, but maybe you just didn't realize you had to spend as much time, responsibilities away from the basketball court that maybe you didn't have as an assistant, that now as a head coach, you're like, man, I didn't realize my head coach was spending as much time doing this. I didn't realize Matt was taking all this time out of his schedule to work on X, Y, or Z. Are there anything like that, any things like that surprised you?
The amount of emails that I get now that I am a head coach is unbelievable. So me and Matt spent a lot of time recruiting together. We would, you know, I would drive down, or he would drive down, and the other person, you know, you'd be working in the car, and heck, sometimes he would drop me off at a gym and he'd go to his own gym. But, you know, you ride together and you're having these conversations and whatnot. And I will always look over at him, and he's constantly on his emails. There's no way you're this important. And I figured out that people like to email head coaches more than they like to email assistant coaches, and that's fine. And then, you know, the way we do things, we're trying to be responsive to everybody. You know, we're not afraid to watch the highlight film, or the random email we get from the random kid in the random town. We're gonna check every box. We're gonna try to go find talents, and if they're the right fit, wherever that's going to be, and if people, you know, are going to take the time to send that email, we're going to take the time to watch. And so that's taken up a lot of time, a lot more time than I originally thought. The concept of right now, we only have our both assistants are part-time. You know, Kevin's working at it a little bit more towards the full-time side of things, but that's, you know, takes out some of the things that we were able to do at Oshkosh, or having a full-time assistant coach makes it a little bit more challenging. But the biggest difference was, as an assistant coach, I could be, you know, during the season when you're able to have contact with your guys, I was always up in the gym. whether it's rebounding, working guys out, showing a couple clips and film, and just being the one-on-one guy. And now, as much I have put things aside to make sure that I still do that, but it just cannot happen at the same level as it did as an assistant coach. And there's been times where I've shorted a couple guys on a personnel on a scout, so I could get up there and work guys out in the gym when it's time. And again, I think it's extremely important. I think I'm making the right decision, but then whenever I go, present the scout, and then I'm up till 2 a.m. to making sure I'm getting caught back up. Those are the things that are maybe the biggest difference. Is the maybe more of the administrative side, the whole picture, rather than just the individual.
Yeah, I can imagine that administrative piece is something that just as a head coach, you just have to do. It's part of the job description. And as you said, then you dump that email on top of it where you're getting stuff from players. I'm sure you're getting from coaches and just people wanting to reach out and find out more about the program and see if you have any interest in them as players. And as you're trying to build your program, you obviously want to build those relationships and respond to as many of those as you possibly can, which anybody who just in your day-to-day life, you just think about how much time you spend dealing with email. And as a head coach, I can only imagine how much more it is. And then we throw on top of this whole thing that we kind of thought we were maybe through the worst of the pandemic. And now this thing's starting to flare up again. And I know that at Lawrence, you guys took sort of we talked about it a little bit before the podcast, a cautious approach to how you were going to allow fans into your building to watch your game. So just talk a little bit about navigating the pandemic and what that's been like for you as a first-time head coach.
It's for a place, and the neat thing about Lawrence is, we're in Appleton, Wisconsin, which if you're not familiar, it's a good-sized small city. It's not too far away from Green Bay and not too far away from Milwaukee. The Fox Valley has a lot of people in the area, and basketball in Wisconsin is extremely important. People love hoops, and in the past the attendance in our gym, our gyms, the Alexander Gymnasium was built in 1928. We got all the bones are still there. We got a brand new floor and a great logo on it, and it looks great inside. It's being branded, but there's nowhere for sound to go. So when there's 12 people in there during a volleyball game and the volleyball girls are yelling, you can't have a conversation. So we're missing out a little bit on having a lot of people in the gym yelling back and forth and creating that atmosphere. But there's that part of it, right? No excuses. You just got to go and control the controllables. And with this whole the pandemic, first and foremost, as I said earlier, it's about the people, right? We want to make sure that if somebody does get it or gets sick, that they're doing all right, and that's number one. And part of that is these guys they're here and they're doing everything they can to continue to play basketball. We just have to focus on the things that we can control. We had a game canceled, already this year. I've been cooped up for the last couple days here, waiting to get back onto the floor once my time's up, and so there's only you can sit here and we can complain about it, and we can offer up solutions or what we think, or we can get to work. And that's what we're trying to preach to our guys, and that's what our guys have done a great job of. Is every opportunity that we get into a gym is special. They saw what it was taken away from last year, and so when we get in that gym, be where your feet are, spend the time and enjoy the competition with your teammates. Every sprint you're going to run is not going to be fun. If I'm getting on your butt for not communicating in conversion defense, you're not going to enjoy that. But when it's all said and done, you're going to enjoy being in the gym and being with the people that you enjoy, you love spending time with. And so those are the things that we're focusing on. We're trying to make the best of sometimes a not a great situation.
What has your team gotten better at since day one of practice? What do you think they've shown the most? What area have they shown the most improvement in?
We are a much better team defensive squad. We rebound the basketball at a much higher rate right now than we did. But overall, the thing that they're doing better at is just the being connected, of caring about one another. We pick up our teammates and we're sprinting over there. We're huddling in good, bad, or ugly situations are coming together. They're taking ownership in the program, and in day one they didn't know what to expect. And our last game on December 30th, we were down big at halftime, and they came together. We cut it to 8 points, and we just didn't have enough to finish the run out. They ended up extending as we're pressing and fouling there towards the end. But this team just won't quit. They believe in each other. They're getting better with the system. But it's all those little things that when you look at them, they're not really little things at all.
What part of being a head coach do you think you're more comfortable with today than you were back in September when you first got the job? What have you gotten better at?
I've gotten so much better at communicating, being concise, trying to not talk throughout an entire practice, trying to give my guards, my bigs, a voice, challenging them when I need to challenge them, and coddling or put your arm around them sometimes we need to put your arm around them. I've always felt that I've done that decently, but there was so much to teach those first couple days, and I felt that just I was going too much. I was too much, too long-winded, and to the point where I've taken a step back and given up control. I mean, most of our stuff now is conversations. We have more conversations than we do, talk at. There are definitely times where I get after them and I say, this is what you have to do, but they know what they have to do now. And so now we're getting to the point where they're asking questions. So like, Coach, well, in this scenario, what do you think? So now they're thinking the game at a much higher level. And so, I'm talking myself into this, but I've gotten better at not just coaching, but teaching the game. And that's what I inspire to teach the game, not just coach the game. And I think our guys are responding to that. And they love having the input and the ownership in what they're doing.
It's definitely the way that coaching has started to skew, right? Where you have that player-coach interaction, you have player input, which is a much bigger factor. You go back 15 or 20 years ago, and maybe there were some coaches coaching that way, but you had many more of the situation where it was just, you're going to do it this way because that's what I said. And with today's athlete, it doesn't work in the same way. They always want to know why. And in so many ways, as coaches, we can get so much more out of our players by asking them questions and asking them what they see and asking them for their input. And that doesn't mean that every single thing a player says that you're going to turn around and do exactly what their suggestion might be. But certainly by getting their input, you're going to put yourself in a better position to be able to help them to be successful ultimately. And I think part of that too goes to my next question, which is you come into that job in September and you have a bunch of kids that you don't know, that, as you said, you didn't recruit, that came to play under a different head coach. And now you've got to coach them. You've got to build relationships with them. So we've talked a lot about what you've done on the floor to get them to be prepared in order to play and be successful. What are some things that you've done either off the floor or from a culture standpoint that you think are worth sharing that so far have proved to be pretty successful at helping you build relationships with these kids that, again, 6 months ago, they didn't even know who you were?
Unique system here at Lawrence. We are in a trimester, class schedule, and so the first trimester ends Thanksgiving, right? That Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and so until we just started class on January 3rd, and so from Thanksgiving until January 3rd, they're basketball players. And that's it. And that means I have to be there to feed them. I got to be there if they're, the extra time in the gym, the weight room, the everything. There's very, very limited people on campus. And so, we had to figure out how to manage that time where it wasn't only basketball. And it started by having guys over at my house for dinner. And I'll tell you the story. It was the first Monday. I said, all right, guys, come on over. I got a nice, television downstairs. We can watch the first half of Monday Night Football. I have food cooked for you, and so they come over, and I still have, it's 2 days before a game. We're presenting our scout the next day at, 2:30 or whatever time it was. And I still have a very good amount of scout to do. And so the guys come over at 7:00 and, we eat 7:45, the football game's going on, and 8:15 rolls around. I was like, all right, that was fun. And 9:30 rolls around and they're just hanging out, telling stories. And, my wife has the video games out and they're having like Wii Mario Kart, and they're hollering and going at each other. And, the competitive juices are flowing, and, now they're all of a sudden they're teams. And by 10:45, I was like, guys, it's time to get out of my freaking house. It's time for you guys to go. You've been here for 4 hours. And I say that jokingly because we did it again the next Monday. And so just spending the time, the meals together were a huge asset for a coach who doesn't have that relationship that you build a lot of the times within the recruiting process. It just having that time together where you're sitting around and talking. There's been a couple trips where, we're coming back for a 4.5 hour bus ride, and the next thing you know, I'm just sitting in the back of the bus. They probably don't like it, but I'm back there telling stories and goofing around with them a little bit and hearing, a little bit more about them. It's for me, it's been all about, showing them that who we are trying to be. And as we're trying to be great teammates, we're trying to be great people, and we're preaching all of this about it's more than just you. Is one of the main things that we've been trying to do, and showing them that that's who I am as a person. Because I think you can say things and you can hang up signs in your locker room and you can have your quote of the day or your mantra, but people figure it out really quick. If that's not who you truly are, they're going to find out that it's BS. And so I want to live of who I am. And I've made mistakes as a head coach. There's an instance where, I had us foul, and I had the wrong number in my head of who I wanted to foul. So we tried to extend a game. We fouled the kid that shoots the free throws better than the other kid. And then after the game, and we ended up losing the game. And afterwards, I told him, I said, that's on me. I got to be better than that. And I've made mistakes, and I own up to them, and allow them to, have dialogue with me. And I just think that, making them believe, and it is that it's more than just them as a basketball player. There's going to be so many times that player A and Coach Korn are not going to see eye to eye on a basketball floor. That they're going to make a mistake. They're going to get mad at me, vice versa. But that never should affect that Casey and player A off the floor. That will never affect that relationship. And I think they're starting to see that. And I think it goes a long way. As I said earlier, trust can't be built in a month. It can't be built in 3 months. It takes time. It's doing what you say you're going to do over and over and over. And that's how we build this trust. And it's hard. It's not easy, but it's intentional, and we're going to continue to grow this because I think it's the way I know how to do it. I don't really know another way, so that's what we're going to do.
Without being able to play together at all last year, and then coming in with a new head coach, how connected were your players this fall to each other? So forget about the relationship between you and the players. How is the relationship player to player, and how have you seen that develop over the course of the season?
They just keep getting stronger. Like they just hang out together, and I don't know how much it was that I feel like it was a decently connected group. And I say that as all three of our seniors, when they realized that there weren't going to be games, ended up taking semesters or trimesters off. They said, you know what, I want to come back. This was before the NCAA gave that blanket rule of, hey, we're, going to give everybody that fifth year. And so they said, I'm going to go explore everything else. I'll come back next year to graduate. So three of our guys are gone. We have 5 new freshmen that have come in. And then five other, kind of returners. So it's still a relatively new group. They've been together as a full group about the same amount of time that I've been there, but they're doing the open gyms and lifting together, and that started with just a couple of our guys making sure they understood what the standard was going to be about. Hey, when we get in the gym, we're gonna lift the right way. We're gonna play open gyms the right way. Now, I've had conversations with them about this. The fall was very different than what they were expecting. There's in Division III, I can't get in there and coach them, and I can give them very little direction on what open gym should look like. And so I stayed out of it and I let them play, and now they know what it will look like a little bit differently, next spring and next fall. But they're a type of group that they're calling me at 9:45 at night saying, hey, coach, any way you can drive over to the gym and let us in? And I will do that. And the next thing you know, there's 4 guys rolling in. It's not, they don't come by one. They bring their teammates with them. And I think that's a great start to what we're trying to get done.
When you get to the end of the season this year, Casey, and you sit down with your AD, or you just go over it in your own mind and you think about what's going to define for you a successful season, what does that mean and what are you looking for? Obviously, it's not a final 1-loss record, but at the end of the year, when you look back over the scope of the entire season, what are you hoping to have accomplished by the time we get to March?
We want to establish our identity as a program, about who we are, about what type of player we're trying to bring in, what type of character that we have, and what our program is going to be about. And we talk about it every single day, and you start to realize the message is getting through when you're eavesdropping on conversations, or if our guys are ever lucky enough to get to do an interview, because you get to hear what they're saying, and when it's echoing kind of what you're preaching, you feel that you're in a good spot. And I think we're taking strides in that direction of these guys, that they're not too up and down. They're learning how to be teammates. They're learning, what it takes to win at the highest level. But more importantly, they're continuing, because I think that, this is them in general, but they're continuing to be good people that won't accept mediocrity in any phase of their life. And they're trying to achieve great things, and that can be in the classroom, that can be volunteering, that can be on the court, but we do not settle for okay. Our standards are high, and we don't apologize for them, and that's where, when next year rolls around or the years roll around, and when somebody comes in and does something that's not up to our standard, mistakes are going to be made. I've made plenty of them. But when the players grab a hold of that and say, hey, that's not Lawrence basketball, that's when I know we've made it. And so building those blocks this year is what is crucial. Now, we can talk win and losses. I think we have a chance to compete for a postseason berth. We have not played in a conference tournament in over 10 years at Lawrence. And, we got to figure out how to be the top 4 of our league. I think we have the talent. I think we have the pieces to not look down the line 3 or 4 years. I think we have the pieces right now to compete for that. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's going to be, are the guys holding each other accountable for the standards that we have in place? And I know that when that happens consistently, I know we have the pieces in place.
What do you hope another coach says when they come out and scout you and they're going back to talk about their team? What do you hope they're saying about your team?
Team's way too good. We can't beat them.
There you go.
It's just super talented. No,
I like it.
I honestly, they play the game the right way. They play this team plays hard. They never quit. They play the game the right way. And if we can do that night in and night out, I'm happy. I'm proud of our guys, and they have been. That's the beautiful thing about we say about building this and trying to grow it. But from day one, we had ups and downs. Absolutely. Are we going to continue to? Probably. I hope not, but probably. And so, but I've never questioned. I've never sat there and questioned effort or do these guys care? And that's, I'm proud of them for that.
All right. I want to give you one final 2-part question, and I'm actually going to phrase the 2-part question slightly differently than I normally do. So one part of the question is your biggest joy, which is going to stay the same. But the second part of the question is, when you think about what you're going to get to do at Lawrence over the next 2 or 3 years, I usually frame it as, what's your biggest challenge? Instead, I want to frame it as, what are you most excited to be able to do with the program at Lawrence over the next couple of years? And then what's your biggest joy that you have when you wake up in the morning and realize what you get to do every day as the head coach at Lawrence University?
Yeah, I can start with either of those.
Yeah, start with either one.
All right. The biggest joy is that I get to do something that I'm passionate about. I get to do it at a place that I believe in their mission. I get to do it somewhere where my wife is happy, where I left one of my best friends. I'm no longer coaching with him, but we can hang out on any period of time. So I'm just so lucky that this all came to place and it came to fruition because, I get to get challenged every single day in something that I'm passionate about, that I hopefully can have impact on people's lives. And whenever I start, if it ever starts becoming about me, then I'll have to go back and listen to this podcast and realize that I'm in it for the wrong reason. But it's, getting all of that, I know how fortunate I am. And so just every single day is an opportunity to, do something right. And just having that opportunity, having the platform to do these things is something that I keep in perspective even every day, no matter what, when days are bad, when games are getting canceled, when we're having less people at practice, it's still, you go back and, hey, what are the positives and what makes you happy? And I'm fortunate enough to do that. And as far as excited is, I just think that Lawrence is a sleeping giant. To be fair, is Appleton's an unbelievable town. We have outstanding academics. We have people that care. They've won before. Like I said, they lost in the Elite Eights. They've lost in Sweet 16s. They were the number one team in the nation. They've had the Player of the Year. And again, it was not me. I was not there for that. But it has been done at Lawrence before, where there's so much good that's happening at this place. In a city that is a 18 to 22-year-old and a young adult would be an unbelievable city to live in, to start the next phase of your life in. There's so much potential at Lawrence for the success of their athletic programs. Men's basketball has been the most successful, so I'll stick with men's basketball. But seeing that it has been done, that it can be done, that they have given me this opportunity to try to build it back to where it has been. And, It's not going to be easy. It's not going to fall into my lap. It will take hard work. And that's what excites me is that, you can see a benefit. You can see down the line. It is not a, hey, just work hard and hope. It has been done before. It can be done again. And that is out there and it is in reach. And we got to go about it. We got to put in the work, and you just can't skip steps.
That's well said. And I think that as you look ahead and you think about when you got the job and the fact that you were a month away from your season when you take over, to be able to have an entire off season next year, to be able to go through the recruiting process, to have some players actually returning that can pass on your culture to the new players, to the younger players, and continue to just build this thing. To me, it's got to be super exciting for you. And I can sense that in your voice. Everything that you're saying tonight and how you're talking, you can just sense the excitement that you have for the potential of what Lawrence can be and what your guys are doing for you this year. I think that comes across really strongly, that here you inherited a team that, again, didn't know you, you didn't know them, and you can sense that you can feel it coming together. And that's, I think, something that any coach really loves to see, is their program develop, their team develop and get better and improve. And I can only imagine how thrilled you have to be with getting the opportunity to do that process at a great university like Lawrence. So before we wrap up, Casey, I want to give you a chance to share how people can reach out to you.
Wait, Mike, I finished my homework assignment.
Okay, good.
All right, I finished my homework assignment.
All right, good.
I think,
jump in, good.
I think that he is the sixth person to be on the podcast 3 times, Mike.
All right, that's a pretty exclusive club.
Alan Stein, Greg White,
Yep.
Dwayne Killings, of course.
Yep.
I believe Huffman was on 3 times early on, and then I believe LeGalbo's been on 3 times. I think that's the list. That's what I came up with, Mike. I don't know if I'm at 100% accurate.
That's a good list. I'm in on that list.
Yeah.
I know many of those people, and I'm fortunate to be on that list. And again, I can keep rambling, so you can invite me back a 4th time, or maybe we got to do something before that happens. Maybe that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, there you go. Look, you got an open invitation, so then we can take it there. So as I was saying, just go ahead and share. How can people find out more about you, your program? Where can they reach out to you? Share social media, website, whatever you want to, and then I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Yeah, you would think that a college basketball coach would be so much better on social media, but let me figure. I don't even know what my social media handle is. Follow me. You can, if you want to take a peek at what we're doing, at coach_Korn, KORN. The program is at LU Vikings MBB. That's our men's basketball page, and we do updates there. It's something that it's on my list of things to do better, is the social media side of things. But feel free at any period of time, you can shoot me an email, KCASEY.D as in dog .Korn, KORN at lawrence.edu is my email address. And feel free, if you got a player, you got a question, you have a suggestion, I'm open to any and all suggestions. I'm learning. I'm not going to pretend that I know much, and I'm just going about learning every single day and trying to get better and hoping to guide my guys as we go through it. And I appreciate this platform to talk about it. It's exciting. It's, you don't get to sit back and reflect on what has happened. I've been go, that, telling this story has been kind of fun because it's so recent and I haven't had any time to sit back and reflect on it. So I appreciate this outlet and, having these conversations with you guys.
Yeah, it's hard to believe you don't have time to just crank out social media content. I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? You have an actual job?
What I used to. My job before I started, coaching full time is I was teaching technology. I was teaching Photoshop and media and multimedia and all this different stuff. And yet, so I know how to use all these programs. I just don't do it. And it needs to be better. It's a huge recruiting tool. It's something that, like I said, I got to get better at. And so I have the skills. I'll teach my assistant how to do it.
It takes time. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, I look at what we do, even with the podcast, and the amount of time that it takes to be able to get good stuff out there and put things out for our episodes. And yeah, it's a challenge. And I think that when you start talking about delegating and having a staff member that sort of takes the reins on that, I think a lot of coaches go about it that way. And then there are just some guys that, whatever, it just comes naturally to them, and they seem to be able to crank out great content. But again, as we've said over and over again, there are so many things, especially when you are first taking over, that you're just trying to put your imprint on and make sure that you're taking care of that. And social media, as valuable of a recruiting tool as I'm sure it is, it still has to bump down the list for some of the other things that we've talked about tonight, for sure. But we really appreciate it. Again, always an open invitation. Every conversation that we've been able to have, Casey, has been a blast. And we're looking forward to having you back on again at some point here in the future as you continue to build Lawrence. And to everyone out there, we appreciate you listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.